2018, I categorically remember the year also when I first interviewed you, and it was a soft feature on your poetry writing.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it was a soft feature for a previous organization where I worked. And today, again, I get an opportunity to interview for a non-finance topic, which happens rarely. And I read your book, Limitless. And in the very beginning, you mentioned about an anecdote that really resonated quite well with me. Your boss told you once that you lack emotional maturity. So this exact same words, one of my senior colleagues told me again few years back. And I felt so bad, obviously. And that time I could not understand the reason why he said so. But in retrospection, I think I realized that. So how did you feel when your boss told you so? And is it a gender thing that women lack emotional maturity at their workplace? Or is it something that happens with others also, with men also?
So firstly, it's great to talk to you. Hi, everyone. It's amazing to see all of you out here. I'm told that you've been going at it since 9 o'clock. So I think as one of the last speakers, I have the job of being entertaining. I'm also not sure whether to be flattered or insulted, because despite 20 years of a finance career, I'm one of the few people here who's not talking about a finance topic. So I don't know what Neil is trying to tell me, but Behrat. By the way, before I answer this question, I must tell you a story about Mint, and you're not guilty, so I can say it. But one of the first interviews I did as MF CEO was with Mint in 2017. And I got absolutely trashed by the journo then. It was the worst interview I have done in my career.
You can name the journalist if
I
you
won't
recall.
name. He's a dear friend of mine. And, I made every possible mistake that you could make in an interview. And you said emotional maturity. I remember getting called by a number of people saying, never give an interview like that again. So since then, I have only gotten better. So I think we're making progress with our. It wasn't you, Neil, either. You had enjoyed Mint then. So everybody here is not guilty of it. So I have good history with Mint. So since then, we've come a long way. So how do you look? I think taking feedback is a little bit like having a sense of humor. Everybody thinks they're good at taking feedback. Everybody thinks they have a sense of humor. But the reality is not many of us are that funny, and not many of us are that good at taking feedback. So that's the conclusion I've come to. And in the early days of my career, and you have to remember, I became CEO, unlike a lot of my counterparts, really without any leadership experience. I had managed 6 people, and then I went to managing 60, and now I manage 400, right? So this is not a natural transition for me. So I didn't like it. I have learned over time, and this is my advice to people because I give a lot of feedback, you have to separate the feedback from the person giving the feedback. And you have to realize that anybody who's giving you honest feedback is actually doing you a favor, and if they're taking time to do it, आजकल वैसे भी किसी के पास किसी के लिए time है नहीं, तो कोई आपको time दे के feedback निकाल रहा है ना, they genuinely care about you. And once you start thinking that, you become a lot better. The other secret is, how would you react if the same feedback instead of a boss was given to you by your mother? And you'd be a lot more mild about it. So it's
mentioned that in your book.
So these are some of the things I've started to think through. I also learned, by the way, the same person who told me about emotional immaturity, many years later told me that you're still emotional, you've gotten a lot more mature, but being emotional is actually your strength, not your weakness. So I've realized time and being your own person and a little bit of success and growth also changes how people view you.
Correct, very true.
To be honest.
Now, maybe people here would like to know that you faced 7 rejections during your campus placement. And it happens with a lot of youngsters also, right after their college, sometimes they don't land a job. So the rejection that they face, so how do they deal with these situations, and how did you deal with that situation? And
okay, so I get asked this like our question everywhere, and I think rejection in India is oddly not a dining table conversation, which is strange because in a country of 140 crore people, everybody gets rejected, either at a job interview, in a school context, by a romantic partner. There's a colleague of mine who jokes that India mein to there are so many gods that even gods get rejected because you choose a different god to pray to, right? So rejection is pretty fundamental in the Indian context. But the strange thing is, you're always taught, and I have a kid, and he's not old enough to understand this, but we always tell our kids, beta, work hard, and if you work hard, you'll get into a good preschool, then you'll get into a good school, then you'll get into a good college, then you'll find a good girl, then you'll get a good job. But we're all taught that. But what if you work hard and along the way you still get rejected? So I think for me the biggest thing is don't fall in love with a single option in life. It's very easy to say, मैं ना IAS में नहीं आया तो मेरा कुछ नहीं हो सकता. मेरी इससे शादी नहीं हुई तो the world will come to an end. I don't get the McKinsey job so the world really doesn't come to an end. Most of us are living not option A, not even option B. We are living C, D, E, and F. I was supposed to graduate from college and be an investment banker in San Francisco. I'm sitting here and selling SIPs in Siliguri. And it's all cool. And it's fine. But never at 18, for a girl who's lived abroad most of her life, would I think that I would be selling SIPs in Siliguri. And I am doing it, and I am damn happy doing it. So option B, C, D, E, F. I always tell people, the doors don't close. Some close, but many others open. You just have to change your eyes.
Correct. And now talking about work-life balance. You are a mother, you're juggling so many things, and you are a CEO. So, and then in this age, we do see on social media sometimes posts getting viral that all these Gen Z people, if they are putting in 2-3 hours in the evening extra to the workplace, and second on the next morning, they'll reach office 2-3 hours late. So what do you tell them? As in hard work versus work-life balance and the kind of life and career we have lived. We believe in hard work. We go beyond. So, and now this Gen Z generation, what will you tell them?
Before I give the mean message to Gen Z, and anybody who says work more than 40 hours a week is going to get trolled on social media. So I'm mentally ready to get trolled. So that's okay. If you haven't spared some other legends in India, then mera to kuch nahi hone wala. But before that, let me give a mutual fund CEO-like disclaimer. You have to realize that I always say there are almost 3 generations that India has had, right? Post-independence. One is what I call my father's generation, which is effectively a generation that grew up in India of scarcity. So when I talk to my father-in-law about how young people want meaning at their workplaces, he's like, listen, for me, meaning was taking care of my widowed mother and 5 sisters, and earning money was meaning. Tum logon ka jo meaning na, wo mujhe samajh nahi aata. That's your scarcity list. I am a millennial. I'm a late-stage millennial. And I still grew up in an India of transition. Like, we saw the internet, but we also saw a long wait for a scooter. And in that sense, we still wanted the big branded job, all of that. Today's kids are growing up in a very different India. And so their needs and their context is very different. And we have to be a little less judgmental. Now on this work-life balance thing, I have a straight answer to this. It's your freedom to make a choice. Do you want to work 10 hours a week? Do you want to work 20 hours a week? Do you want to work 30 hours a week? Or do you want to work 100 hours a week? It is a choice. But I also want to say that choices have serious consequences. And so people will come and ask me, and let me tell you the less glamorous part of life. How are you the mother of a 2.5-year-old? And how do you write a book? And how do you do Shark Tank and all of that? And my only answer is, there are serious trade-offs I make to do this. So the year I wrote Limitless was COVID. And in COVID, everyone was watching something on streaming and doing that. I didn't download Netflix, Prime, anything. I didn't watch a single movie. I didn't watch a single thing on streaming. And I never went to meet anyone for lunch because I told my husband, if we go out for lunch, all my writing time on the weekend is gone. These are choices that have consequences. I'm now mom CEO. I don't go to parties. I don't go to movies. I make choices and they have consequences. So everybody is free to make choices, but a serious career and everything that you see does not come from working 20 hours a week. Troll me. You troll me now. Now you can start trolling me. Doesn't come from working 20 hours a week, and don't let anyone fool you into believing that.
So in your office, how do you deal with your young employees? Maybe if they are saying so, then what do you tell them?
I tell them exactly what I've told you. I tell them choices have consequences. And if the guy or girl next to you, and it's not about ours is a really stupid way. But if the person next to you is putting 2x the effort and delivering 2x the output, and you're wondering why they're growing 1.5 times as fast, you should not wonder. That's all I say. And I'm not saying, and I have people who work 5 days a week, and I have people who put that extra hour effort, and I have people where if the office conducts a training session, they'll make it a do or die and make the maximum out of the training session. And there are some people who go to the training session saying, phone check karne ka time hai and let's chill at lunch. You can do whatever you want, but choices have consequences.
Very true. Okay, and now in book, one anecdote you shared that you carried a $10 bag and a lady told you were working as a hedge fund manager then, and the lady told you that you can very well afford Louis Vuitton, so why not? So what did you think that in that moment? And I believe you did buy. So this whole thing about having branded things or not doing any show off and just being in your element.
Yeah, and I didn't start working in the Insta generation where like everybody has a perfect marriage and like perfect holidays and all of that. Look, and this is my money hat speaking. I think money has an incredible influence on mental health. And I have talked about this. And we live in a comparison driven world, absolutely comparison driven world. It takes a lot to get to a point where you can free yourself from comparison. And for anyone who's 20 years old, I'm not saying don't go buy the Louis Vuitton bag. I have one right there and my son is destroying it as we speak. He's actually destroying it. But don't let that be your sense of identity. So I was telling my family as we were coming here that I got married very close to this hotel. And when I had come from the US, we wanted to get married at the JW Marriott in Juhu, this exact hotel. But we couldn't afford it. So we got married at the Ramada, and I just passed by the Ramada. And I used to feel very embarrassed by that choice. Today, I'm at a stage where I can say, boss, I'm happy driving my Innova. I don't want to buy a fancy car. I'm happy wearing whatever. I don't frown on people who make choices, but don't let comparison drive the reason for your choice. And it takes a lot to get there. It's easy to sit here and say that.
Correct, truly.
And really, you know, for someone who has spent a lot of time on social media, if you were to listen to Twitter, then everybody's portfolio is making 50% a year. And everybody has, and if you were to hang out on Facebook, everybody has a perfect marriage and lovely kids. And everyone's having great holidays on Instagram. Unfortunately, that is not the reality of life. So living life offline helps.
Right. And from audience, anyone want to ask something to Radhika? Yeah, yeah.
I'm expecting something really mean and spicy and troll-worthy, guys. And I'm also watching my handbag being destroyed as this is happening live.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Tanishk. And I got to know about through Shark Tank, and many of my peers got to know about Shark Tank. And can you just tell me, like, how was it to be between various people, various founders who had cracked like a unicorn company? So.
Okay, so I guess I've never answered this in public domain. Motivations for doing Shark Tank and perhaps some experience. So I've gone a little bit viral for saying that life should be dal chawal, and 80% of my time is spent selling SIPs and mutual funds, which is a very dal chawal thing to do. And, you know, I try to keep the investments in our funds very simple and very dal chawal. Otherwise, people like Neil would write not very pleasant articles. But I also believe that as a young person in India, you get so many interesting opportunities to do the pickle and chutney. And so Shark Tank was my way to experiment with the pickle and chutney. I think as someone who's in the fund industry, we celebrate Indian entrepreneurship every day. I've been an entrepreneur twice over. We invest in entrepreneurs. And so it was amazing to hang out in a climate of entrepreneurs. And I think some of these kids are crazy, right? They're 21, 22, 24, and they're building relentlessly with very little resources. I mean, many of my portfolio companies are really very small town kids. In fact, I don't think any of them is a big city kid, right? So every time in my own organization, and I go back and people say, अपने पास resources नहीं है, and ये हो जाता है, और ये constraint है. You go back and you hear some of these stories and you get genuinely energized. So more than being energized by reality TV and unicorns, it's seeing some of the magic of these 21, 22-year-olds that continues to energize me. And honestly, the criteria for picking companies, I've realized, should be people you want to hang out with after the show is over and have a conversation every week with. Because, I mean, at least for me, my Shark Tank portfolio is not to make returns. For that, mutual fund sahi hai. My Shark Tank portfolio is to do something else.
Any one more question? Only one question you can take. Yeah. Go ahead, yours, Hannah.
Ma'am, can I saw. Yes.
Okay. Then.
Hi.
Hi, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Myself, Nidhi Nagesh Pujari from UK's Institution of Management Studies and Research. Ma'am, I had a question for you. What advice would you give to young professionals aspiring to leadership roles in the financial industry?
This is a great industry. So it's a great industry to enter. And I think it's getting far more interesting than it was 20 years ago, because 20 years ago, if you were a financial services professional, I think your domain was limited to banking. I think it's opened up a lot. My advice, and I joined this industry almost 20 years ago, would be figure out why you're joining this industry and don't do it for the money and glamour. For someone who went to a prominent business school where 90% of my classmates did finance, many of us did it without knowing why we did it, and we often did it for the money and money and glamour is great. That fades out very, very quickly. I think this industry is extremely cyclical. It goes through extreme highs and lows, and it's important to find some sense of purpose in what you're doing and why you're doing it. That's one of the reasons I love selling mutual funds, because I think it's truly a mother-in-law safe product. I feel very happy recommending a mutual fund to my mother-in-law, my son, my help, or anybody in this room. So there is a sense of purpose. So find a sense of purpose in this industry and have a sense of balance, because, you know, I've seen days as a young analyst where we would get paid by the company to go home in limousines. And then I've seen days where a colleague would get laid off with a random phone call that came and their screen would become blank. So both of these are the realities of this industry, and you have to live life somewhere in the middle.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, and Radhika, one last question. You are a star CEO. So what next for you in next 5, 10 years? What next?
I have no idea. By the way, my first desire in life was to become a journalist. That was my first chosen profession. I didn't do that. Then I wanted to become a criminal lawyer. Now I'm selling SIPs. I still want to go back and pursue that part-time law degree. Some people think I'll do something in government, but don't start any rumors. So I don't know. I genuinely think you don't plan careers, but you respect opportunities. And India over the next 20 years is going to give us so many opportunities that I just have to pick and choose from what comes. And if nothing else, then we'll just keep saying mutual funds sahi hai.
Amazing. Amazing end to it. Thank you so much, Radhika. Always
Thank
a pleasure
you.
talking to you.